I'll never forget the moment my family turned on me. My brother's voice cracked with rage. Sign it over, Emily, or we'll ruin you. But what he didn't know was this. My grandparents had seen their greed years before. And the revenge they planned? It was written into every dollar of their $39 million legacy. If you've ever felt underestimated, betrayed, or dismissed by your own family, you'll feel this story deep in your bones. Smash that subscribe button right now, drop a like, and tell me in the comments, have you ever wanted justice to finally come around? Because today, justice doesn't just arrive, it hits like a freight truck. My name is Emily Harris. And sometimes I think my life has been one long, weathered Texas road, endless, sun-scorched, lonely. I grew up in a house that looked polished on the outside, but inside it was ice. My father, Michael, was a real estate developer who loved skyscrapers more than his kids. My mother, Susan, was an interior designer who decorated strangers' dream homes, but never built one for her own family. And my brother, Jason? He learned the rules early. Shine bright enough, and you'll get their shallow approval. Designer sneakers, straight A grades, the latest gadgets. He played their game perfectly. Meanwhile, I faded into the background, quiet, bookish, craving warmth that never came. That warmth lived a few miles outside Dallas, on my grandparents' ranch. Henry and Clara Brooks weren't wealthy when I first biked there, 8 years old and running from the sound of my parents' fights. Henry handed me a wrench instead of questions. Clara handed me cornbread instead of judgment. They gave me something my parents never did, a place where I belonged. Henry built his trucking company from a single beat-up rig. Clara coaxed life from stubborn soil. Together, they taught me values: integrity over greed, patience over pride, independence over dependence. Clara would always say, "Don't let money own you. You own it." Those lessons armored me when the world mocked me for faded clothes or when Jason paraded his flashy new toys. At 18, I shocked my family by enlisting in the army. Michael scoffed, "You won't last a week." Susan cried, "You're throwing your life away." Jason muttered, "Too naive." But Henry just smiled. "Discipline and service, that's how you'll find yourself."
He was right.
I did 10 years, rising to sergeant. The army was brutal, but for once, effort mattered. I carried Henry's wisdom and Clara's patience into every mission. When I came home, I didn't join Michael's empire. I started my own security firm, modest, honest, built on trust. And I stayed close to Henry and Clara. Phone calls, ranch visits, updates on clients and contracts. Their pride was real, their love steady. Then came the storm. One gray morning, my father's trembling voice cut through the phone. "Emily, your grandparents' plane went down. No survivors." The words ripped me apart. Clara's laughter, Henry's steady hand gone. At the funeral, neighbors filled the chapel with stories of how Henry had paid men out of his pocket, how Clara had fed the hungry. My parents cried and postured, but I saw their eyes glint with calculation. Jason's too. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just greed. It was about to become war. Days later, we sat in their lawyer's office. Michael, Susan, Jason, my Uncle Richard from London, and Samuel, the housekeeper who had served them faithfully for 20 years. My chest ached, hoping for a letter, some last words of love. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Henry and Clara updated their will 6 months ago. The ranch, the trucking company, and the sum of $39 million go to Emily Harris alone." The room exploded. Michael roared. "She manipulated them." Susan sobbed. "Emily, how could you?" Jason spat. "You whispered lies to them." Richard sneered. "A small-time security guard holding a fortune? Unthinkable. We'll challenge it." Then the lawyer played a video. Henry's weathered face filled the screen. "We chose Emily because she lives by the values we hold dear: honesty, independence, heart." Clara's soft voice added, "She never treated us like a bank. She treated us like family. Michael, Susan, Jason, Richard, we love you. But we've watched. You chose greed. Emily will protect this legacy, not for herself, but for the community. The screen went black. And that's when my family declared war. Phone calls, visits, threats. Michael demanded the company's shares. Susan begged with guilt-soaked tears. Jason stormed into my apartment, reeking of cologne, hissing, "Give it to me, or I'll destroy your name." He flooded social media with lies, painting me as a manipulative fraud. Richard threatened endless lawsuits from London. Fear pressed on me like combat night terrors. But Henry's words echoed, "The truth is your weapon." So, I moved into the ranch, upgraded the locks, brought in my army friends, and prepared for the siege. It didn't take long. One evening, sleek cars rolled up to the gate. Michael, Susan, Jason, and Richard stormed forward, demanding entry. I stepped out onto the porch, not alone. Beside me stood Thomas Reed, the lawyer. Sheriff Lopez, an old friend of Henry's, leaned against his cruiser. And behind me, 3 of my old army comrades stood like stone. Inside the villa, the shouting began. Michael slammed the table. "This is ours." Jason shoved his phone in my face. "The world thinks you're a thief." Richard smirked. "You'll drown in lawsuits." I let them rage. Then I opened a folder Thomas had prepared. Loan records, unpaid debts, proof of manipulation. I laid it on the table, my voice steady. "Push me further, and this goes public." Reporters are waiting outside that gate. Their faces drained of color. For the first time, they were cornered. They stormed out, slamming doors, spitting threats. But I had won. The next day, we leaked the folder, carefully anonymized, to a local reporter my grandparents had trusted. Within days, headlines told the real story. My father's debts, my mother's broken promises, Jason's manipulations, Richard's schemes. Public opinion flipped. They weren't victims. They were vultures. Jason's social media empire collapsed. Sponsors cut ties. Michael's lawsuits crumbled in court. Richard's lawyers abandoned him. Susan tried one last midnight call, whispering, "Please, Emily, forgive us. Just a little help." My heart twisted, but my voice was firm. "Prove you've changed." Until then, I can't. And then, silence. But I didn't stop there. Protecting the legacy wasn't enough. I had to grow it. I modernized the trucking company, hiring veterans who knew loyalty. The ranch flourished with sustainable farming. And I launched the Henry and Clara Brooks Foundation, funding scholarships, food programs, and community projects. At the launch, a teenager whispered through tears, "Thank you, now I can go to college." In her voice, I heard Clara's kindness. In the hum of the crowd, I felt Henry's pride. The $39 million wasn't a gift. It was a test, and I had passed. My family tried to bury me in greed. Instead, they buried themselves. The inheritance they coveted became the weapon of their undoing, because Henry and Clara had seen through them long before I ever could. And me? I didn't just inherit money. I inherited their values, their vision, their trust. That was the sweetest revenge of all. Here's the truth. Money doesn't reveal character. It exposes it. My parents and brother saw a fortune and lost themselves. My grandparents saw me and trusted me to protect their legacy. That's the kind of wealth no one can steal. So tell me, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Smash that like button if you felt the justice in this story, and subscribe so you never miss the next tale where karma hits harder than anyone expects. Because trust me, the next one, you don't want to miss it.